Hey guys, so in this video, we are going to look at what I'm calling the basic conditionals. Now, in order to pass the C1, there are 6 conditionals you need to know. In this video, we're going to focus on 4 of them, what I call the basic ones. There will be a separate video which will cover advanced conditionals. And in order for you to see the difference between the conditionals, I've tried to keep the examples similar. In this case, it's simply about waking up and having a coffee. So let's get into it. All right, so here down the left-hand side, you can see your 4 basic conditionals. You've got 0, first, second, and third. Let's start off with the 0 conditional. Now, it's used for facts, habits, or rules. Okay, and what you're basically saying is every time A happens, B happens next. The structure is if or when plus subject plus present simple, subject plus present simple again. And if you've had this lesson with me before, you will know that I have a weak joke for this. I call it the Christmas conditional because it's full of presents. Anything I can do to make it stick in your mind, I don't care that it's not funny. All right, and if we look at the basic example, we've got when I get up, I always make a coffee, I make a coffee. One thing you can do is if you're doing a kind of choose the correct conditional activity, look for adverbs of frequency. So, of course, it's possible to say when I get up, I sometimes make a coffee. I usually make a coffee. I never make a coffee. These are all fine. Okay, so look for adverbs of frequency as a kind of clue word. One other thing, because we're talking about things that happen regularly, facts, habits, rules, we more commonly use when than if with this conditional. All right, now there's a big difference between 0 and first. You'll see it here. If or when plus subject plus present simple is the same. Subject plus will or can plus infinitive. The second half of the sentence is what demonstrates the difference. Now, I call this the real future conditional, and it's used for certain, likely, or possible situations in the future. Notice I focused here on if something is certain. So when I get up tomorrow, I hope that's certain. I hope I'm not going to die overnight. And then I would use when. However, if I'm talking about something that's likely or possible, I would use if. And you can see that here. If I wake up late tomorrow morning, that's possible. Could happen to any of us. All right. And I focused, if I wake up late tomorrow morning, I won't have a coffee. One thing that you can look for in this part is a future time phrase. Usually to help our listeners, we will say when in the future this thing might happen. So words like tonight, tomorrow, next week, this summer, an hour from now, any of these will hint at you that we are using the first conditional. Okay, so that's the difference between 0 and first. Now, what about the difference between first and second? Well, second conditional is used for unlikely. So notice the opposite, impossible, or imagined situations in the present or the future. Okay, so the first conditional focuses on certain, likely, or possible. Second, on unlikely, impossible, or imagined. The first conditional is all about the future. Second conditional can be the present or the future. And you can also see differences here. So we cannot use when with this one. It has to be if. And we have past simple instead of present simple. Now, this is nothing to do with the past. We are not talking about the past. We're talking about the present or future. Why is it there? It's there to help the listener understand the difference. This happens quite a lot in English. We use the past simple when we're not really talking about the past. It's confusing, I know, but it's there to help the listener to understand which conditional we're using. And instead of will or can, we're using would or could. Now, in terms of my nickname for this, I call it the drunk conditional. Why do I call it that? Because when people drink alcohol, they leave the real world and they go off into fantasy land. And if you go to any pub in the UK and listen to 2 people talking and they're drunk, there will be a lot of the second conditional. Oh, you know what? If I was the prime minister of this country, I would immediately lower the taxes. Or talking about sport, you know what? If I was the manager, I'd never pick him again. These things are not possible. I am not going to become the prime minister of the country. I am not going to become the manager of my football team. I am in fantasy land, and that's what the second conditional is. Okay, and sticking with the theme of fantasy, if I woke up on the moon, I wouldn't have a coffee. Okay, it's not going to happen. I am imagining this. Now, to show you the difference between first and second, I'm also going to do another example. When choosing which one to use, you have to focus on the if part of the sentence. So, Manchester City, my team, are a good football team. And they are playing today, and there is a possibility, a good chance that they will win. Okay? So, I'm choosing the first conditional because the if part of the sentence, how likely is it? Yeah, there's a good chance it's possible. So I'm choosing first conditional. The second part of the sentence does not matter in terms of how likely is it. So here we go. If Manchester City win today, I will dance naked in the street. Now, the fact that this is very unlikely does not matter. You've got to focus on the if part of the sentence. To show you the difference, if I danced naked in the street, now I'm talking about something that is very unlikely. You'll be happy to hear. And therefore, I'm choosing the second conditional. The fact that the police would arrest me is likely, probably certain, doesn't really matter. You've got to focus on the if part of the sentence. If it's something likely, use the first conditional. If it's something unlikely, use the second conditional. All right, now the last one is the third conditional. And just as we talked here about the future conditional, this one is the past conditional. And this is talking about how one event in the past affected another. Now, this is all about your imagination. You are looking back to the past and you are imagining that things are different. So let's have a look at a simple sentence. I didn't have a coffee because I woke up late. Now, there is nothing wrong with that sentence. It's fine. Two past simples. That's important that they are both completely finished. And I have some questions that I need to ask myself when I'm making my sentence. So, which event happened first? Well, that is, I woke up late. That goes with the if part of the sentence. So, I woke up late, but I'm imagining that I didn't. I'm saying if I hadn't woken up late. Also, did it actually happen? Well, I woke up late. Yes, that happened. So I have to use negative grammar here. Notice that I woke up late. I'm imagining that I didn't. I'm saying if I hadn't woken up late. If it didn't happen, I didn't have a coffee, then I use positive grammar. I would have had a coffee. Okay, so one more time. Which event happened first? I woke up late. Did that happen? Yes. So I use negative grammar here. If I hadn't woken up late. Did I have a coffee? No. So I use positive grammar. If I hadn't woken up late, I would have had a coffee. This is where most students get the third conditional wrong. You've got to remember these things. If we go back to our table, it's if plus subject plus past perfect. So if plus subject plus had or hadn't plus verb 3. So there it is again. If I hadn't woken up late, I, subject, would, and present perfect, have had a coffee. I would have done my homework, for example. Okay, so it's not always with had in here. It's a verb 3. Okay, that's it for the basic conditionals. It's a lot of information. One of the reasons I'm making these videos is that you can watch it multiple times. You can pause it. You can make notes. I recommend actually having another column here if you're going to copy this table. And I recommend calling that my example. And do an example from your own life. Okay, these are my examples. They're not really memorable to you. I kept them as similar as I could about having a coffee and waking up because I want you to see the difference. But really now, when you're copying this into your notebook, you should come up with your own examples from your life. Okay, so come up with something for the zero conditional about your daily routine. When I get home, I cook dinner, for example. Okay, with the first conditional, think about something that you plan to do tomorrow. If I meet my friends tomorrow, we will talk about football. Second conditional, think about something from your imagination. If I was a celebrity, I would, whatever you want. And third conditional, look back at your past. Look at two things that happened that were related to each other and come up with your own example. So if I had gone to Spain instead of France, I would have tried Spanish food. Again, I'm just using my examples here. You put your own in. There is, as always, an accompanying worksheet that goes with this. So have a go at that. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been useful for you. And I will be back very soon with another one. Okay, take care.